Let's look at the logic of the ritual. Once a year, society demands you perform a specific set of emotions. You are expected to stand in the center of a room, accept an offering of glucose and fire, and simulate surprise and gratitude. It is a social contract. I validate your existence today, so you will validate mine tomorrow. But you opted out of the contract a long time ago. You treat the day like any other Tuesday. People call you cold. They say you lack holiday spirit, but maybe you aren't antisocial. Maybe you are just efficient. Maybe you realize that waiting 365 days for permission to feel special is a math equation that doesn't add up. To understand why you feel this way, why the confetti feels like gravel and the congratulations feel like noise, we have to dismantle the architecture of your independence. We need to look at the blueprints of your mind. Conventional psychology might look at your lack of celebration, check a box on a clipboard, and label it anhedonia, the medical inability to feel pleasure. But that is a lazy, surface-level diagnosis. It is insulting. You are perfectly capable of feeling pleasure. You love the specific silence of a house at 4 a.m. You love the smell of rain on hot asphalt. You love the satisfaction of solving a problem that baffled everyone else. You feel deeply, you just don't feel on command. What you reject is not joy, what you reject is performative validation. You reject the demand to smile just because the calendar says it is time to smile. This indifference isn't a glitch, it is a highly sophisticated operating system. It usually stands on 3 specific pillars. And once you see them, once you trace the wiring, you can never unsee them. First, you have what psychologists call an internal locus of identity. Think about how most people operate. They are like solar panels. They need external light to generate energy. They need the likes, the toasts, the happy birthday texts flooding their screen to confirm they are still relevant. They need a yearly audit of their social value. You are different. You're not a solar panel. You are a nuclear reactor. You generate your own power from the inside out. You have spent years, maybe decades, building a self-sustaining ecosystem. You know exactly who you are on a random rainy Tuesday in November, so you don't need a parade on a Sunday in June to remind you of your worth. To you, the applause of the crowd isn't fuel. It's just noise that interrupts your signal. Second, you possess low temporal landmark salience. That is a technical way of saying you don't believe in the magic of dates. The Western world is obsessed with checkpoints. We are taught that life is a video game with levels. Turn 18, turn 21, turn 30. We are told that on New Year's Day, we become new people. But you are a realist, perhaps a natural stoic, or a quiet Buddhist in disguise. You understand that time is a river, not a ladder. You know that you don't change because the earth completed a rotation. You change because of the books you read, the grief you process, and the discipline you keep when no one is watching. You know that real growth is slow, invisible, and constant. So stopping the river to celebrate an arbitrary mile marker feels absurd to you. It feels like clapping for a clock just because it kept ticking. But the third pillar, this is the one we usually hide. This is the one that goes back to the beginning. It is called social selectivity as a defense. Let's be honest about where this started. Let's peel back the layers. For many of you, this goes back to being a small adult. If you grew up in a home that felt unstable, if the emotional weather in your house changed without warning, you likely became parentified. This means you had to manage your parents' emotions before you even knew how to manage your own. You became the diplomat, the therapist, the emotional accountant. In that environment, celebrations were not about you. They were work. You had to perform. You had to smile so mom wouldn't feel guilty about the divorce. You had to look grateful so dad wouldn't get angry about the money he spent. You were walking on eggshells in your own living room trying to keep the peace. You learned to read the micro expressions on their faces better than you learned to read books. And in that chaos, you learned a brutal lesson very early. Needs are dangerous. If you have a need, you create a burden. If you have a wish, you open yourself up to disappointment. If you ask for a specific cake and they forget, it hurts. So, the smartest, most tactical thing to do was to stop wanting things, to become low maintenance, to delete the date from the calendar, to say, I don't care. This wasn't sadness, it was strategy, it was survival. You rewired your brain to view indifference as safety. You convinced yourself that if you expect nothing, you are invincible. And it worked. It made you strong. It made you the person who can handle a crisis while everyone else is panicking because your baseline is chaos. You are comfortable in the void, but there is a cost. There is always a cost. The world looks at you and sees a person who is sad on their birthday. I look at you and I see a person who is hyper-independent. You aren't refusing to celebrate because you think you're worthless. You refuse to celebrate because you refuse to perform. You are reclaiming your energy. You are saying, my existence does not require a witness. That is powerful. That is autonomy in its purest form. However, and this is the hard part, we have to ask the question that might hurt. Is this autonomy or is it armor? Because there is a difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is the joy of being alone. It is expansive. It breathes. Isolation is the fear of being seen. It is constrictive. It holds its breath. If you are truly honest with yourself, in the quiet moments, is there a tiny part of you, maybe just 1%, that is still that 7-year-old kid, the one who didn't want a loud party, but just wanted to be held, wanted someone to look at them, really look at them, and say, I am glad you are here, without expecting anything in return, without you having to earn it by being good or smart or low maintenance? We tell ourselves we don't care about birthdays because it protects us from the possibility that no one else cares either. It is a logic game we play. If I don't invite anyone, I can't be rejected. If I don't check my phone, I can't be sad when it doesn't ring. If I say birthdays are stupid, I am in control. It is a perfect preemptive strike against disappointment. You reject the world before the world has a chance to reject you. So what do we do with this realization? Do we force you to buy balloons, wear a hat, and pretend to be someone you are not? God, no. That is torture. That is just another performance. But we need to apply a little bit of what Carl Jung called making the darkness conscious. Jung didn't say we should fix everything. He didn't say we should chase the light. He said we should acknowledge the shadow. He said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Here is your mission. It is not to throw a party. It is to forgive yourself for needing protection. You need to forgive the child you are for having to be so damn strong. You need to forgive that little version of you who decided that being invisible was safer than being seen. And you need to forgive the adult you are for being so tired. You have been carrying the weight of your own existence for so long, refusing to let anyone else help lift it. The next time that date rolls around, try something different. Don't ignore it, and don't perform for it. Just sit with it. Stop running from the date. Stop treating it like an enemy. Sit down with that child inside you. Acknowledge that you survived another year. Acknowledge that you built a life out of thin air with no safety net. Acknowledge that you are valid, even if the room is empty. Especially if the room is empty. You have spent your life proving you don't need anyone. And you were right. You proved it. You can survive alone. You are the master of your own emotional ecosystem. You are the captain of the ship. But the storm is over. You don't have to be in survival mode anymore. You don't have to grip the wheel so tight your knuckles turn white. The war you're fighting in your head, it ended years ago. You can put the armor down. Just for a day. Maybe this year. You don't celebrate a birthday. Maybe you celebrate a truce, a peace treaty with yourself. Do not do it for Instagram. Do not do it for your family. Do it for the ghost of the child you used to be. Buy the good coffee. Take the long walk to the place where you can see the horizon. Turn off the phone, not because you are hiding from the world, but because you are finally giving yourself permission to disconnect from the machine. You are simply resting. You are letting the river flow without trying to steer it. You are here, against all odds, against all the trauma, against all the silence. And that is enough.